Just let me know when it's on.
Were you talking to me?
No.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. But thank you for your support.
I thought you said having trouble with the live stream.
All right. We should be good to go.
All right. Good evening. I would like to call the Goochland County Economic Development Authority to order for its May 2020 meeting. Do we have a quorum?
I'm sorry. Mr. Salone?
Here.
Mr. Schmidt?
Here.
Ms. Dearden?
Here.
Mr. Fitzhugh?
Here.
Mr. Smith? Here. All present, you do have a quorum.
All right, and then we will move to the citizen comment area. If you are joining us on Zoom, you may raise your hand or press *9 on your phone if you have a comment or question. Do we not have any citizens on our Zoom call tonight?
Nope.
All right, then we will go ahead and close the citizen comment period and go to the approval of the April minutes.
Madam Chair, I move for approval of minutes as amended on page, let's see, packet page 7, page 5 of the actual minutes themselves. I believe on the second paragraph after the first partial paragraph, it should say 3,500 acre business park.
All right, you're on page
7 of the packet, page 5 of the minutes.
7 of the packet. And you're in,
Second paragraph.
okay, second paragraph.
First full paragraph.
And what was your edit?
Should it be 3,500 acre business park?
Yep.
Yep, okay.
Thank you for that.
And then one other comment on, and I don't know if it makes a difference, but at the pleasure of, actually on the same page, item 1, target industry analysis update. There were 2 individuals who, on the committee, had said that they would wish to be involved with that, being the gentleman to my far right and myself.
I will add that in there.
Do we have a second as amended by Mr. Sloan?
Second.
Any other further comment? Or
I'm sorry, who seconded? Okay,
Mr. Smith?
thank you, sorry.
Any other firm comment? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. Moving on, do we have a treasurer's report?
It is in your packet.
Not much. We had, we paid the Christian Barton bill that we approved last month. It looks like Christian Rise is the only one, at least appearing here, that took advantage of the grant that we provide.
We have, I'll give you an
Sure you
update.
have.
We'll give
Yeah,
you an
I'll give you an
update.
update later.
Official check written.
Correct.
And the Hardywood refund happened. And we did move the CD into the LGIP account.
Fantastic.
And that's all that's going on.
Yes, we had a little bit more interest accrued on that account than we had initially voted to move, so we just moved it all.
Good.
And it was a little bit late because of COVID and making the request, but they waived that and let us go ahead and move it.
And that's the end of the report.
Any other questions about the treasurer's report?
Is there anticipation of when the internet grant and/or loan will be taken from the account?
I have not received an update from Mr. Paul Drumright, but I can ask him for that. He's actually been pretty good about communicating back and forth with us on broadband initiatives and things like that, but I have not heard anything, so I'm going to say not at this time, but I can find out a harder date from him.
Yeah, I'm sure we're not the only one that would like to know when broadband is
Yeah.
coming. Anything you can do to move that along would be great.
Okay, no problem.
All right, the Goochland County Incentive Program.
Yeah, so we're actually gonna swap that item with, target industry analysis kickoff.
All right,
We have two folks from Virginia Tech who are gonna zoom in right now, and
Okay,
they're
great.
gonna kind of talk through the process, what it looks like.
Good.
And I figured we could just go ahead and knock that out.
okay.
Give us a second to, they should pop up on your screens. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
It worked earlier. Hi, Sarah. We can see you and you can hear us. Sarah, can you hear us?
Yep, I'm good.
Awesome.
How's it going?
Good. We're admitting Zach here. Zach, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Hello.
All right. I'm going to get this on everybody's screen. All right. Everyone can see you.
Hello.
Okay. Can they see us?
They cannot see you.
Okay.
They can hear you, but they can't see you.
Okay.
Perfect.
I feel like this is a little one-sided, but okay.
All right. Zach, do you want to see if you can share your screen? Or do I
Yes,
need to
let me do
something?
that. Oh, it says it's disabled.
Oh, gosh.
Let me try again. Still.
The little drop down right beside the share button at the bottom,
Ah,
advanced sharing options.
oh, yes, that's right. All participants.
Advanced sharing.
All right. Try now.
Yep, got it.
All right. I think Casey's going to give a little brief overview and then turn it over to you guys.
Great.
So what we wanted to do today was just go ahead and, we approved the analysis last meeting. And so what we wanted to do was have kind of a kickoff with Zach and Sarah to kind of talk through what this process looks like, what the end goals are, and give you all an opportunity to ask any questions from them in terms of implementation or data or anything like that. And just kind of kick it off and see the timeline as well. So this is kind of the first opportunity of many to kind of talk to them about it, but I'll turn it over to Zach and Sarah and kind of let them launch into their presentation.
Okay.
Okay, I think I'm going to be starting. Basically, before Zach talks specifically about the project itself, I am just going to kind of give you a broader overview of what our office is and what do we do, and why in the world we want to do a cluster analysis. So yeah, my name is Sarah Lyon-Hill. I've been affiliated with the Virginia Tech Office of Economic Development for over a decade now, and my colleague Zach Jackson you were a graduate assistant with us for a little over a year, and now. We're almost coming up to a year where you are, economic development specialist in the office.
Yeah.
So the Virginia Tech Office of Economic Development is basically one of several offices in the university that really is there to fulfill Virginia Tech's land grant mission. So we are there to go out into communities and help take the resources of Virginia Tech and connect them to different communities, organizations, localities, regions, and help these areas grow and develop. So we do this in two ways. One is we are one of the front doors to Virginia Tech. There are several front doors, I would say. But you can give us a call about any sort of question. Say you have a question about a widget. We will go and we will find the faculty member who is the expert at that widget and connect you with them so they can answer your questions. We also, and this is what Zach and I do primarily, is applied research. And And that is anything from helping a county do a strategic plan for economic development, or maybe a strategic plan for agriculture, to going and doing an economic impact study, a feasibility study, all of that, maybe a workforce study. All of these, we basically combine secondary data that we collect either through public or private institutions. And we combine it with a lot of local knowledge, and to kind of help to create whatever final document and strategy that a community has, such as Goochland. So, yeah. Did someone say something?
No, you're good.
Okay, I'm good. Okay. Yeah, yell at me if you want me to stop at any point. So I go to the next slide. I would say in most of this research that we do, we in some ways address some sort of industry analysis. So in the case of Goochland, we are looking at industry clusters. A lot of people throw that term around. Some people know what it means, others don't. So just in case, an industry cluster is basically a cluster of different businesses that are in some way related to one another. So they may draw from the same technology, the same workforce with similar knowledge and skill sets. They may have similar markets. And in many cases, they may actually be part of each other's supply chain. So if you're looking at the automotive industry cluster in Detroit, you don't just have, Ford and Chrysler creating cars. You have all of these smaller manufacturers that create all of the different components. I'm originally from Toledo, Ohio, and we helped to make a lot of the glass that went into these cars. And so you basically have all of those different employers, all of those different businesses that somehow relate to one another and help to develop in a particular area. Next slide. So a cluster mapping really is identifying those different clusters within a given geography, such as Goochland, and identifying which ones are already strong and that you could grow some more, identifying ones that have potential, either through they may have similar workforce, they may have, there might be some sort of some natural resource in the area, and deciding, is there a competitive advantage in Goochland to grow these and help grow and develop the economy overall? These are useful because you can help benchmark yourself against other counties in the region or against peer communities. It can help you kind of uncover areas where you wouldn't really think there was an industry strength. But there might be an industry out there that you're thinking that turns out that, oh, this is something that you could really grow and has potential, and this is something you can focus on, helping these businesses that already exist grow, but also pulling in others and attracting other businesses. In various studies that we've done, we have actually had people come to us and say, hey, we think we would be a great community for a data center, or I think we should have a slaughterhouse facility in this region because it would really help the overall industry cluster. And so we've looked at those. In some cases, we've been like, yeah, all you have to do is, X, Y, Z, and you could really grow this, and it could be a really great asset, and you could, attract more data centers. In other instances, we've been able to say, not quite. Here are the criteria that you need for this. You don't necessarily have it. If you got it, then you could, move forward on this, but sometimes the cost-benefit analysis might not match up. So that's really kind of what we're looking at today. But I think Zach might provide a clear example of one of the research reports that we did for New River Valley.
Thanks, Sarah. We completed a similar process for Onward NRV, the New River Valley's Regional Economic Development Organization. Onward NRV contracted OED as part of a rebranding process, an element of which was getting a better understanding of what industry groups they should target in order to hone their messaging and sort of better serve businesses in their region. OED first analyzed the region, taking note of existing industries and assets. OED also considered the organization's goals, namely improving the quality of life of NRV residents through high-paying positions in growing industries. Using a mix of data collection and analysis, market research, and interviews, OED isolated for regional specialization, food processing and advanced agriculture, information technology, advanced manufacturing, and unmanned systems. Using this information, Onward NRV created award-winning marketing materials for processing any changes in the countywide labor force. Next, OED will perform a regional scan to understand what industry assets exist within the county and region. With this information, OED will establish an economic baseline that speaks of the strengths, challenges, and opportunities present in the county. At this point, OED hopes to reconvene with this group to ensure that our findings are reflective of your knowledge of the county. And once that baseline is established, OED will input data collected from the first and second steps into proprietary software that will then isolate existing and emerging clusters. OED will then perform a demand analysis to isolate those clusters that both complement regional strengths and those clusters that are slated for growth at the national and at the statewide level. Similarly, OED hopes to engage this group again in verifying these clusters to ensure that our findings are accurate and implementable. Our timeline for this project is 4 months, starting with our kickoff meeting tonight. We hope to reconvene with this group at 3 points. As I mentioned before, we want to ensure that our product is representative of the county, and we'd like to verify our findings at 2 stages. First, as we establish the county's economic baseline, as I just mentioned, and second, as we identify those existing and emerging clusters. Finally, at the close of the project, we'll submit a final report and formally present our findings to this group. This project will rely heavily on data collection and software that we have access to in-house. However, there are a few things we'll need from you. Most notably, we'll need your expertise and knowledge of the county to verify our findings. Open communication is also really important to us, so feel free to reach out if you have any questions during the process. Finally, if there are any guiding documents outside of the strategic plan Casey shared with us, those would be helpful to us too. Most importantly, we want to know what you need from us. I have put a few general things on the list to the right on this slide here, but feel free to let us know now sort of what you need and expect from us moving forward.
All right, so do you guys have any questions for Zach and Sarah regarding anything they've presented or any comments about the study, et cetera?
This is Lisa Dearden. When you were working with the New River Valley, did you provide any kind of communication to them that they could or did share out to the public prior to the final report being released, so that people kind of knew what was going on?
I'm not sure. Personally, that project was a little before my time at OED, but Sarah, do you know if they did anything along those lines?
Yeah, well, okay, I will say that theirs was, they actually held a lot of focus groups. So I think they met with New River Valley, Onward NRV, excuse me, they changed their name and everything. But they basically met with them, I think 4 or 5 times during the actual project, but then they had different events that were open to the public where they did focus groups and understanding what were the particular industries and interests of the area. So yes, there was a lot of that. I would say in this part, for this particular project, we would be relying a whole lot on you and your input that would help kind of drive if there are certain areas that we need to look at that don't necessarily pop up in the data. Answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
This is Mark Smith. Can you
describe for me just briefly your data collection process?
Sure. We'll use our proprietary source, MZ, to gather a lot of industry and workforce data. Most notably, we'll look at industries by their share of the county's employment and look at those industries that contribute significantly to the county's gross regional product. We'll also take a look at labor force to just understand where the strengths of the county's labor force lie in terms of specific occupations, qualifications, and things along that line. And just speaking to the demographic data that I alluded to as well, we'll use federal sources just to sort of get an understanding of some of the growth the county's seen in the past decade or so, just to get an understanding of the overall direction of the county, if that makes sense.
I would say that, so traditionally there are different organizations and universities have created certain industry clusters that already exist. What we tend to do is we may look at those to see, okay, would that fit for Goochland? But we also try to understand and kind of create our own industry clusters. That's what we did with NRV. We basically looked at how businesses would relate to one another and how the different industries kind of connect, given how Goochland works and functions. And again, that's taken from a lot of proprietary data to understand basically where you have leakage within the economy in terms of where does the money stay within the economy, or does it sell, or does it leave the economy and go someplace else to other industries, or are they kind of working with one another? I think you're also looking at kind of location. A lot of the data we use is, location quotients. We do shift share analyses, really understanding employment, that sort of thing. Yeah, if that helps. Yeah, sorry, Zach.
Thank you.
Sarah, this is Ben Sloan. I'm also an Escapee from Ohio, down 75, a little bit further south of you. But
Okay.
if I understand correctly, based on Lisa's question, the interface with the public and in particular private property owners, other business owners would really fall upon us to collect whatever information we think is necessary for this study then. Is that correct?
I would say so. I think, and Zach, you know this more than I do, in the process of developing this, we had offered different steps on what we could do in terms of analysis. We had offered, doing more kind of in-person industry interviews, that sort of thing. I think cost-wise, we asked for more money, and I think we all settled on something lower than that. But, and Zach, correct me if I'm wrong on this. But I think for the most part, yes, we would rely on a lot of your input and understanding of what the region is and what is needed from the region from a business perspective. If it comes down to it, if we could do some interviews if needed. Yeah.
That's bang on, Sarah. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay.
And Zach, again, Ben Sloan, if you mentioned software twice, and I think you're actually talking about the same package, the same proprietary package both times. Is that correct with regards to analysis of the data that's available in a given region? I assume it also looks across the border, in particular to our east into Enrico and even northeast into Hanover for comparables there too. Is that correct?
Yes, 100%. And acknowledging those shared assets within a region is a big part of the cluster mapping. So we won't keep our analysis contained. Our will 100% be Goochland, but we'll also, just in that it's important for the overall process, take into account regional assets.
And regional could even extend further out, let's say eastern seaboard theoretically, or if there's any general trend that, I mean, how do you do trend analysis? Do you look at just the results from the software, or do you actually analyze trends that are currently underway within market segments?
Well, to answer your first question, I would think that much of our analysis would be, in terms of defining a region, would probably be limited to that greater Richmond area, just in acknowledging the linkages of the businesses in terms of a certain proximity. And then to answer your second question, a lot of the analysis we do, I think in terms of isolating trends, in terms of the data that we have, looks backwards, just in that that's how our data is collected and presented. We have the option through MZ, the software I've been alluding to look at projected trends, which we will do for this to get a sense of how these industries are expected to change within the next 5 years, I think is how we understand that. But a part of this will be supplementing those trends by using national and statewide market research. And in the past, we've gone to IBIS World to get those industry by industry specific market outlooks to understand at the national and then again state level how things are changing and what influence we can expect to trickle down to the local level.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Zach, Sarah, do you guys have anything else you'd like to end with or round out it?
I thank you for your time tonight, and I think both Sarah and I are really looking forward to kicking this off and working with this group.
Good, we are too.
Thank you. We're
Thank
looking
you.
forward to it.
Great. Thank you, guys. We appreciate
Thanks.
it.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Have a nice night. Bye-bye.
You too.
Successful. That makes me happy.
Thank you for doing that.
Did you have anything else, Sarah, that you wanted to add before we move on? Or Casey? I'm looking at Casey.
Sorry. You'd be surprised how often that happens.
I'm looking straight at you.
No, I mean, they've been great to work with. Obviously, it's a really quick ramp up in terms of conversation. They were really excited to want to talk to you all tonight and kind of go through the process so that you guys were aware of what they were doing, how they were doing it. I mean, obviously, they can dig into the data and talk about what specific items better than I can. But they're super excited to kind of get into the project. And I mentioned that we had 2 EDA members who were interested in being very involved. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. The more knowledge they have from the local level, the better.
So from what I understand is that we will have 4 major touch points with them, in addition to maybe some other ones along the way, but we'll have 4 major touch points, including the final report.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So as they kind of start the process, I feel like tonight might have been one of those, but then as they start to create that baseline, they'll touch with us to say, hey, this is the baseline we're creating. Just verify that this is kind of what you all are seeing and things like that. Then they'll work on the cluster piece of it, which we'll be involved with as well. And then before the final report, we'll probably see some sort of draft or document that says, hey, this is kind of what our findings have found, et cetera. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
What do we see actually as we go through this? I mean, trying to envision what a report does it identify companies and manufacturers, whatever, the specific micro section of the industry they're in, and where this might be related to somewhere else in the region as well as us?
Yeah,
And-
so the final report will end up giving us kind of a paragraph, and it'll say advanced manufacturing, and then it'll say chemical manufacturing. It'll say, here are the number of employees in your area that are currently involved in this. Here are some of the big companies in the region that are involved in this. Here's why we think Goochland is a fit. They need, a capacity of water. They need land away from railroads. They need this, et cetera. And it gives you kind of that.
And this would drive you towards recruiting
Yes.
other companies or components of this
Correct.
industry or that type of thing?
Yeah, and then like they were talking about New River Valley, it allows you to create a message and a story through marketing materials that you can then kind of push out, and they give you basically all of the context for the story. You're just kind of implementing that into the marketing materials, the website, et cetera, to kind of push it out. And then we also have, when you get it down, so we talk about the Naiks Codes, where you have the 2-digit is really kind of like manufacturing, and then the 6-digit is chemical manufacturings of widgets made of plastic. So that gets us to that 4-digit where we can then look up companies and say, all right, let's look at, 4-digit in chemical manufacturing of plastic widgets. Let's look at the West Coast and see who doesn't have a location on the East Coast. And we can kind of do target marketing that way as well. Yep.
So they're gonna give us, there is a final report.
Yeah.
Is there a way that they may supply us with a sample of that they've done in the past, with from someone else?
Yeah, I have the New River one. Do you want me to send
Yeah.
that to
Is
you?
there something
we saw
besides the
that.
New River? I mean, they keep referring to New River, it sounds like they've done one.
No, they've done more than that. That's just the one they've
I
sent
mean,
me.
that's all we've heard.
No, that's the one they've sent me, and that's the director that I talked to, so I think they were just kind of keeping that.
Can I see that? I don't think I've seen it.
Yeah, I can email it to you.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Not
I
a
think they
problem.
used that one because it was similar in
Scope.
that it was a rural
Yeah.
community.
I get that. I'd love to see one that was county-specific. Because I have a feeling the more successful, I think the more detailed, more successful these are is a geographic reach. So New River, if you combine those counties out there, they're tiny. Half of them don't even have any COVID
Right.
cases. But, but you put them together and they
Sure.
do have some results that matter.
Yep, not a problem.
And also, along those lines, how do we need to handle any type of interface with existing businesses, property owners, et cetera? And I'm thinking actually in particular West Creek. Is that something that it's envisioned that the county or the staff would be involved in, or us, or both, with regards to, does the Federal Reserve, with their research projects, et cetera, have needs? Does Capital One have need, that type of discussion in the vision of Tommy Pruitt or whatever
Yeah.
the case might be? How is that envisioned to be conducted?
So I think that's where Sarah and I will both be kind of on the calls and the projects and things like that. So she's met with our top employers, and that's where we can take that knowledge that they've shared with us and Todd and Mr. Podusky and implement it into the study of letting them know, yes, hey, this is something we've seen, or, no, that's so off base. But I think this also will justify some of those long-standing things of we're primed for X. And it's like this, I think this will help clarify whether or not we are actually primed for X, whatever X may be.
Yeah, and as Casey said, we would definitely be reaching out to, obviously we can't reach out to every business owner, but some of the larger landowners, we would definitely be reaching out to them for some feedback. And the interesting thing is, and you mentioned the Pruitts and West Creek Business Park, they've actually come to us and said, what should we be looking for? So it's sort of the chicken or the egg. We're gonna have this report, and we'll have a few iterations throughout the way that we can relay to them and other landowners in the area and other business owners and say, this is sort of what we're seeing, because just because a report says something doesn't mean that's something that Goochland wants. So that's the conversation that needs to be had continuously throughout this process, is reaching out to the business owners and the EDA and finding out, what are they telling us so far, and is that something we wish to pursue? It's also going to help in future conversations with VEDP, because they've also asked us, what are you looking for? And we hate to have the reply that I think we said at the last meeting. We don't want to say, we can tell you what we're not looking for.
Yeah.
We don't want to say that.
Yeah.
So this actually will help us significantly when it comes to dealing with the state, dealing with landowners in the area. And we do have such a unique area on the east end of the county with West Creek Business Park. It's got Route 288, it's got I-64, we have the Tuckahoe Creek Service District, we have water and sewer capacity, we have significant amount of water and sewer capacity. We have a lot of land out there, so I think giving the Virginia Tech team an appreciation for what that actually means, I think is gonna help progress this through. But yeah, there'll be several iterations throughout.
Any other questions?
I think it's an exciting project.
Yeah. Okay, so now, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, moving on to the county incentive program.
So as you remember, this is an item from last month that we pushed forward to this. If anybody needs a recap of the incentive program, I am happy to provide it. But this is just looking for you all to make a motion to approve the incentive program that we presented on last month regarding the 3 different types of incentives, the speculative building space, the general Goochland County incentive, and then the matching grants.
And I believe, Mr. Sloan, you had some questions
Yes.
last time that I think were
Madam
good.
Chair, I'll move to remove from the table the Goochland County Incentive Program document.
So then we need a motion to move forward and approve.
Well,
we have,
it was tabled, so we had to remove from table.
okay. So do we need to second that? Yes. So do we have a second to remove that from the table?
I'll second.
Any other question or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed?
I'll abstain.
Okay, so we still have a quorum, and it is removed from the table.
And by the removal process itself, and it's brought up automatically for consideration, and it's, therefore, I would suggest approved by the body.
So is that a suggestion or is that a motion?
Oh, it's already done. By removal, it's brought up with all its amendments, and so therefore, in fact, I was just looking at the county attorney's 11th edition of Robert's Rules of Order, just to verify. But by the fact that it was removed and part of.
So
if
we
I
had a
understand.
motion last month, correct? And then it was tabled, is that?
And so removing it from the table and approving it as such through the removal process, it's
So it's now approved.
now approved. That's at least my limited understanding of Robert's Rules of Order.
Your limited understanding is much greater than most of ours, I can assure you.
Would it hurt to actually have a motion just to clarify that it's approved?
Never hurts. You can always.
So maybe we just do that.
Clarifying motion. Would anybody like to clarify that motion?
So moved that, I move that the Goochland County Incentive Program be approved by this body for use.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Any other further discussion?
I will ask that the staff consider the concept in conversations with council and going over a number of different issues. And this is just a generalized proposal, that the document be considered, well, revision to consider every potential incentive. I think as it is right now, in one aspect, it more focuses on grants and some other things. And I look at this as a potential roadmap, not only for the authority and naturally the board and staff, but also for anybody that walks into the county to know all the options that are available and all the nuances that really deal with the 15249 series of the Code of Virginia. And so I would ask that, and I'd be happy to, and I know, Sarah, I believe you've done a lot of work on this. I'd be happy to, if I get some time to do such, just to throw out a thought, but that's my only remarks. Otherwise, I'll stay the same.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. No further comment. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
And I will abstain again.
All right, well, the incentive program is approved.
Perfect.
Thank you. All right, now on to new business. How about some information about the e-commerce grant?
Yeah, so far we've had 11 applications in a month. One of those has been a completed project. So you guys talked about the money that came out of the funds earlier. We have 5 that we have approved, but they are waiting completion of their project at the moment. So they submitted an idea to put their business online or add the shopping cart or update their website. They're going through that process as we speak. So they've been approved, but we are waiting final receipts and images that they've done those things that they said they have done, invoice, et cetera, before we can move forward with those. We had 2 that were denied. And the reason that they were denied was just because what they were asking money for was not within the scope of the project. One was for a new roof, and the other was for a new computer for their office. So neither of which we felt like fell into the guidelines we had approved. And then 3, I have our waiting additional information at this moment. One of the guidelines was that they had to have a 2020 business license. Some of them submitted just not realizing that they just hadn't gotten their updated business license yet. So they're going through that process, or they needed a second quote or something along those lines. So we've had a good, I feel like, receipt of people being really interested and excited that there's something out there for smaller businesses, especially those who maybe weren't approved for some of the federal loans and things like that. We've shared it out via social media and Facebook and LinkedIn. We've shared it with the chamber, who has sent it out to their members, and we've also individually sent it out to businesses we know who have done something like this to say, hey, there is this program that can help you. Some of them, they did the work themselves, so they don't qualify. But yeah, we've gotten a really good response, and I think people are excited to see that the county has stepped up to do something for some smaller businesses who may not have qualified for the federal funds.
So even if everybody that has applied so far got the full amount, how much, do you know how much that would be?
It would be $2,700 roughly.
So I'm wondering if it would be worth asking for some press,
Yeah,
you know, maybe
absolutely.
a press release about this.
Yeah, sure. Good idea.
Not that all that many people read the paper anymore, but,
Hey, but you never know who's going to pick
Right.
that up or where it's going to go.
right.
Yeah, and so then on top of that, I have 15 active projects that we're working right now. So while COVID has shut some things down, we do still, I had a new project come in today. So people are still looking at growing, expanding their businesses at the moment. Things are still moving forward. Sarah and I are both very busy. And then we had 2 new buildings come on the market, 2 new buildings and sites come on the market since we last spoke. The medical office, the second medical office building off Wilkes Ridge, right next to Madarva, has come on the market. So
good.
they're looking for some tenants for that before they
Wow.
kind of start that build out. And then 2350 Lanier, which is about 3,800 square feet of space. There was a transportation company in there. They were hoping to see more kind of traffic than they had from that location. So they've moved out, and that one has come on the market. So those are both up on the IVS scan. And then we have 2 that are currently pending transactions that will be selling hopefully in the next, I would say, 2 weeks. And so that's 1145 Tri-County and 2561 Turkey Creek. So there's still stuff moving.
Is the transportation company that moved out, is that warehouse type space?
Yeah, so it's 1,200 square feet office, 3,600 warehouse.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Have you seen any change in the valuation of commercial properties because of the virus?
I have not, and we haven't had a big increase in vacancies either as of yet. Most of the webinars I've sat in on and things say that they're not expecting to start see those numbers go up until about Q3, when really they were struggling, and then they kind of band-aided some fixes, and then Q3 hits, and they're expecting to kind of see more of the vacancy rates and things like that start going up as companies have seen this drop and maybe not quite the spike that they were anticipating coming back. So that's all for new business, unless anyone else has any questions.
Just to follow up on, I did ask that question, so I guess that really ties into assessments at the last meeting.
Yeah, actually, I can answer that, and I thought it was more specific. With the assessments, I've actually talked to Marion Davis, our county assessor, and she said she has 0 update right now and probably won't for 6 months or so, because she does her assessments on a yearly basis. So she probably won't have any updates on assessments for a while, but we are definitely watching that, so that's why we asked the question to her,
And
so.
building permits are still active, or are still?
Very much so. Yeah, we're still, every commercial project I can think of is pushing on all cylinders, really. Even the Residence Inn project, that one's still moving forward. Obviously, if you just drive out there, you see the construction on it, even though nobody's going to hotels right now. It's still hot and heavy into construction. Sheltering Arms, I believe they received their TCO, Temporary Certificate to Occupy, which is excellent news. They should be getting the CO very soon. And more on the residential side, I can't tell you how many houses are coming in. We actually have a drop box on the side of the building here. I'd say at least once a week when I go over there to pick up, there's at least 10 house plans in there, at least, at a minimum. So, I mean, there's still houses going up, with 1 to 2 new houses every single week, so. That's more on the residential side, but the commercial's still very busy.
I know anecdotal, I can't believe what's going on. Price, the place just next to us sold for 60,000 more than what they were asking.
Yeah, we've been talking to realtors as well, and I think there is a little change is what they're saying. There's a little bit of a change right now, but they're not seeing like a major change that you would think would be a result of COVID happening right now. They're still seeing pretty hot market, so.
Okay, moving on to existing business, a COVID-19 response?
Yes, still working a lot, trying to help our businesses, kind of navigate. Reopening is the new thing. So we kind of got through the idle loans and the PPP loans, and now we're moving into phase 1, reopening back of our economy. I wanted to show you a new website launched today. It's called Forward RVA. I've been part of a regional team since about mid-March when this hit. It includes all the surrounding localities and even reaches out to, say, like New Kent and Charles City and things like that. For us just getting together and brainstorming, so we've got like the National Retailer Association, Chamber RVA, and a lot of different groups. We meet 3 times a week via Zoom call, and we just kind of reach out to see what each locality is experiencing and just talk about grants and just a whole flux of information. So out of this meeting came Forward RVA, and Chamber RVA is kind of the face of this. And what it is, it's basically a resource guide for our businesses as the economy reopens, as we go through phase 1 and into phase 2. One of their major initiatives that they have right now is they're giving out some free PPE for businesses with 25 employee or fewer employees. They do have to register, so we can see who they are, make sure they have less than 25 employees, and we know where they're going to go to the distribution sites to pick up. So Casey and I will be volunteering next week for 2 days at the Deep Run High School. That's our distribution site, to get this out as much as we can to our businesses. So if you guys know anybody who would be interested in partaking of this, I've gotten it out on social media, I've emailed our businesses, but as more information out as we can get. So that's kind of the big push at the moment, to get this out, and it's also going to provide them a paper copy, because everybody still needs paper copies of things, of a reopening guide. So when they register and they're like, hey, I'm a restaurant, we're going to provide them a paper copy of Forward Virginia governor's guidelines of what they need to do. And then this website also directs them to lots of different other resources that they can look at to use as they're reopening, because it's more than just, hey, we're just going to open our doors and it's going to be back to normal. There's requirements for distancing, there's requirements for masks for employees, there's requirements for signage and a lot of things. So we just want to make sure if our businesses can get back open again, that they don't get shut down because they didn't know about a requirement that somebody required. So trying to get this information out as soon as possible to as many people as possible.
Sarah, what geographic area does this serve?
The Richmond region footprint. So you're looking at, we're about as far west, so Louisa's not in there. So
Yeah.
Goochland, Powhatan, and then we move into Hanover, Henrico, the city, New Kent, Charles City, and I'm missing one, Chesterfield.
Chesterfield.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see the Virginia Department of Health under your restaurants section there.
Oh, is there as a, oh, I think it's under probably all business sectors maybe. I'm not sure. No, it doesn't have it on there. But yeah, the VDH should be under there.
Yeah.
For sure. I'll shoot them an email.
Good point.
And ABC, I don't know if they're on there too, that's another big one. So along those lines, I worked closely with the Community Development Department to create an expedited review process for our restaurants to be able to extend their seating out into areas that they would not have previously been able to do. So we're talking about like parking lots and maybe like little landscaped areas and abilities to put up pop-up tents and to do things along those, but still do it safely. So I've had at least 2 businesses take advantage of this expedited review process and get them up and going so they can actually seat more people outside and get back to making some money that they need. So that's been super helpful. The building inspection department has gone out and done like a drive-by, and he has not seen anything that was of concern. So looks like everybody is obeying all the guidelines and doing what they're supposed to do, at least from a building inspection standpoint. Now, VDH goes out and does their own thing, and ABC has also their own laws. So businesses have to kind of try to navigate both of those. But I'm there as a resource for them if they need it. The RVA Small Business Relief Fund closed yesterday at 5 p.m. That was a joint effort between Chamber RVA and Facebook. They are giving out 100 grants in the first round. However, they highly encouraged everyone to apply because if they can demonstrate a need, then they will get a second round of funding and maybe even a third round of funding. So they wanted to get as many people as they can to apply. They're only giving out 100, but hopefully we'll be able to get more as it goes forward. So I did a big push, social media push on that, emailed all the businesses out on that. Got a good response from that. I am working with Mr. Badesky on the CARES locality funding. So when things kind of trickle down, information trickles down, it's hard to know what you're allowed to spend money on and not spend money on, but the county was allocated some money from the state, from the federal government, and it's supposed to go towards localities' efforts on things that they spent during the COVID crisis. So, you know, if they had to buy face masks or PPE equipment, or if the schools had to do certain things.
Is that just for-profit, or does it include nonprofit?
Well, in it is a caveat that says it can be used for business grants, but for-profit business grants. I don't know about nonprofits on the locality side of that. So I'm trying to determine how much money we actually have, and whether, you know, it's going to be used in other places, or whether there might be an opportunity for this body to be able to do some grants with that money. So I hope to have some more information back to you next month. That was kind of hot hitting last week, and so Prince William has gotten out grant guidelines using the funding. I'm waiting for some smaller localities to kind of come out with their guidelines to use the grant funding. Our unemployment claims look better now. At our height, back on April 4th, we had 263 new claims that day, so that was, or that week, and now it's down to 84. So as of right now, we have 662 continued claims. So from the start, I think we had like maybe around 30 when COVID hit. We have 662 continued claims. As of 5/9, I don't have an employment rate. It's not out yet. No one's published it yet. I've tried to find it. The accommodation and food services obviously has been hit the hardest from the employment sector. And then retail trade has been hit as well, and then healthcare. You wouldn't think healthcare's been hit, but they shut down dentistry, they shut down elective, so a lot of those types of offices had to file, their employees had to file for unemployment. So we're not as bad as other localities in our region, so that's one good thing. The Chamber of Commerce has, the Goochland Chamber of Commerce has been hit really hard. They make their money out having events. They haven't been able to have events. So they are asking for members to pay their 2021 dues early. So if you want to give that a thought and see if that's something that you would be interested in doing, so it would be, you paid in January for all of 2020, it's $2,500. If you pay now, obviously you would not pay again in January, but it would pay for all of 2021. They're just trying to get some cash flow and just to keep them up and operational until
They're in danger of losing their jobs.
they are. Matter of fact, one has already been furloughed. So it's, they've reached out to their entire membership, and there's people that aren't paying, and then there's people that have paid, but, you know, they're asking, well, hey, why don't you pay 2021? And we're holding kind of a, I don't know, a webinar in hopes to get information and drum up some excitement about the chamber and things like that. So if that's something you guys would consider, I'm sure they would
I would be
appreciate
in
that.
favor of doing that because I think they're really important right now to keep their pulse on the business community, and they're in really serious danger of having to close their doors.
So it's in essence, just a prepayment of next year's bill. I would agree to that.
Also move.
I think we do have to make a motion to
Yeah.
pay it, yeah.
Yeah.
This is crucial, Chamber.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we have a formal motion from Ben. Do we have a
I'll
second?
second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed? All right, they can go ahead and get a check.
Yes.
And if you need me to come back and sign it this week, I will.
Okay.
Because I know they're really struggling.
Yeah, they are.
Good.
So I know, you know, you hear a lot of businesses closing down. You hear things like, oh, JCPenney, they're closing for good and all sorts of things. But I have not had any Goochland County business tell me that they're closing. And so that's awesome. I'm super thankful for that. And we actually had two open. Looking for my notes here. Oh, a new antique shop is opening at Plumtree Corner.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Did they sell the property or just rent it?
I think they're renting it. And then a commercial fire, mold, and water damage company is filled the last remaining spot at the Rock Center, which is in Rockville Commerce. That was some spec space that he had built about 2 years ago, and he had a tenant in there, and tenant didn't work out, and he had been trying to fulfill one last space, and so now that's filled as well.
Good.
So, as Casey said, you know, we're still seeing people coming in and still opening up. Honestly, it's mostly hospitality, restaurants, and retail trade that are really seeing the squeeze, I think, at this point. So,
I think a lot of people have been partaking in takeout from the restaurants and really trying to support. I've been happy to see that. Even though the new Mexican restaurant here opened just before COVID.
oh yes, Los Panchos. Yes.
Yeah, they're doing pretty well.
I've heard great things about them. And that was one of the ones that got approval for some outdoor seating. So.
Good.
Yes. Do you have any other questions for me?
Two quick questions, if I may. Do you get any feedback from the SBA or any other way of the EIDL on the PPPs? How many different organizations within the county have taken advantage of it?
Not broken down by county yet. We keep asking for it. I have the state numbers, but they just don't have the county numbers.
Okay, and do you also track the number of business licenses per month?
Not per month. I can get that information. I track new business licenses per month. I'll take that back. So new businesses opening in the county, yes, but not ones that are renewed.
I just wonder if that's of any value for trends. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I will say the new business license count has lowered the last 2 months, but I don't know if that's necessarily contributed to COVID or the fact that our building's closed and it's just more difficult to do business with us. Although everybody is doing it online and we're trying to be as helpful as we can, that could also be a contributing factor. So we'll see once we get back open again, whether we get a larger influx of business license, and that might answer that question.
Do we have a date yet when we will open during phase one? County buildings?
I can turn that over to Todd.
Yeah, actually, yeah, great question. We did put a transitional plan in front of you. You're more than welcome to read on through it. This was actually distributed by the county administration and Mr. Paul Drumright. I'm not going to read this word for word, but just to go through sort of the structure of what it is. And this is subject to change. It's a dynamic document. If the governor comes out with something that changes, it may actually change this document, but this is the best that we have as of today, so to speak. But just to go over the structure real quick, the first page, you'll see at the top, it says all employees and guests should consider the following guidance. Basically, that section and the one below it is just more general guidelines that we would follow. It goes over self-assessments. How do you feel? If you're feeling ill, don't come to the building. Safety-related items. We have safety measures throughout the building. I know you may have just come in the front door. You may have seen a sanitizing station there. We have them throughout the building. We have PPE throughout the building. We have gloves. We have masks available for anybody who wants them. So we have those distributed throughout the building. But below that is where we actually begin the phasing. So we have phase one is no social gathering of 10 or more, which is basically in line with what the governor is saying. And if you flip to the second page, there's phase two. On the third page is phase three. If you notice, there are no dates associated with it. It's kind of, again, I kind of go back to it still being a dynamic document. It's a little fluid. We actually were very purposeful in not putting dates because we didn't want to for somebody to make like a life decision with daycare. People have children, they have daycare, and they have to plan accordingly. If they see dates in here, they may be planning accordingly. We want to be very careful and sensitive to that and not putting dates in there because that may mess up somebody's plans that they have. But we do have some general guidelines in here for phase one, phase two, and phase three, all structured very similarly. They have guidelines for guest and citizen interaction with staff. There's a section for guidelines for public meetings, which we're in right now, and you can see that we have Zoom, county administrator, what's that, 5, 6, 7. Then if we have an applicant, that's 8. We have a county staff here to give a presentation, that's 9. You really bump up to that 10 real quick just on one meeting. So what we've been doing is transitioning in and out of the room. If I don't need to be in there for the board meeting, but I do have an item, I just sit at my desk and I live stream until it's my turn. Then I walk in the board meeting, give my presentation, and walk back out. So it's been this constant flow. It is different. It's a little awkward, to be honest, and especially with live. Zoom is live. Live stream is also live, but it's on almost a 10-second delay. So there is some kinks that we're working through when it comes to dealing with those meetings. But I don't have a direct answer to your question about the dates and everything. But we do have this guideline, and anytime it gets updated, I will be forwarding it to you. But I wanted to make sure you had a copy here. So
I'm sure we will know when you're open.
yeah.
Okay, is there any other existing business or other business that anybody would like to talk about?
Madam Chair, are we going into closed session?
Yes, we are.
Okay. I was going to ask a question, but I'll ask it in closed session.
Okay, so I will go ahead and close.
I have one thing.
Okay.
Just to follow up, the PPE is going to run out in July, correct? Roughly.
The PPP.
Yeah, PPP, excuse me.
Too many acronyms.
Will run out in July, right? Roughly, the end of July?
Yeah, they still say that there's a decent amount left right now. And I do know they're talking a third stimulus, but I don't know.
So in you alluded to it, that not many people have really gone out of business, but there's a reason, there's obviously, I think, a reason for that, and it's the money that a lot of people have got. Obviously, that's gonna stop at some point. And that's where I think that we can really come in, to play. You guys are gonna have your jobs full, more full than they are now. And I just would urge to be thinking about things that you may bring up to us or internally to help these folks, because it's going to, I think personally, it's going to get, there'll be a much more of a need, and the urgency will ramp up when this artificial stimulus ends.
It's passed.
So right now, it's kind of we're meeting as usual, and everybody seems to be on a plateau, but I don't personally, I think it's gonna get a lot worse.
There's a
Before it
cliff
gets
out
better.
there.
What's that?
There's a cliff out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, you know, at that point, restaurants and a lot of these places are gonna be pushed.
Especially if we don't move into phase two
Yeah,
in a
so,
timely fashion.
you know, as far as taking advantage of parking lots and eating outside, as long as if there's, it's a great idea, and while the weather is cooperative, we should do everything we can to help them. That's all, I was just a comment.
Okay, thank you. All right, I will go ahead and close the formal part of the EDA meeting, and we'll go into closed session. Just let me know when you've turned off the live stream.
I think we should have the motion on live stream and then I'll cut it after.
Okay. All right, well, in accordance with the provisions of sections 2.2-3711 and 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia, I move that the Goochland County Economic Development Authority convene in closed meeting for the purpose of discussion of a prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the business or industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the community, and for consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation where such consultation or briefing in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body as permitted by section 2.2-3711, section A1, and section 2.2-3711A7 of the Code of Virginia.
Second.
Do we have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposed. All right.